Thank you, Lasken Corla. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute to these statements today. I want to acknowledge the Minister's speech and his work on this area and the progress that he has made since office, which I think is considerable. I want to thank PAVI Point nationally and more locally in my own area, Southside Travellers Action Group, for their engagement with me over the past year in my role as a quality spokesperson for Fine Gael and for a TD for Dún Laoghaire. While I've had the opportunity to speak several times about education strategy and the impact of COVID and other matters of concern to traveller, I want to acknowledge this is the first dedicated statement on traveller accommodation where I've been able to contribute. The first thing I want to do, therefore, if you don't mind, with the permission of the House, is to pay my respects as a new TD for Dún Laoghaire to the people who lost their lives on the 10th of October 2015 in the halting site on the edge of my constituency in Carrick Mines, where a fire broke out, where 10 travellers lost their lives, including a young mother who was pregnant. If I may, I'd like to take the opportunity as TD in Dún Laoghaire on the edge of that to name them again in this House. We should never forget the victims of the fire. Tara Gilbert and her partner Jimmy Lynch, their daughters Jodie and Kelsey and Willie Lynch, Thomas Connors and his wife Sylvia, and their children Jimmy, Christy and Mary. In January 2019, the Dublin Coroner's Court, of course, returned a verdict of death by misadventure in the case of these 10 tragic deaths. The Ombudsman report last week highlighted a specific issue with the Cork County Council, but to me, the read across from the report on broader systemic issues is of huge importance. The OCO has recommended that the local authorities engage with HSE social inclusion units, TUSLA, youth services and local schools to improve the lives of children living on that site. But these are not new challenges, not new ideas or recommendations. We still don't have an implemented National Traveller Health Action Plan. We still don't have a National Traveller Education Strategy. I'm pleased that the Government is committed to the National Traveller and Roma Inclusion Strategy 2017 to 21, but we do need to see action from the different departments, particularly the Department of Education, on the National Traveller Education Strategy, which is persistently highlighted by PAVI Point and others, and including many deputies in here, including me. Because the issues that we see in accommodation, the issues that we saw highlighted by the Ombudsman for Children, these issues I'm highlighting on education, they impact vulnerable children more than anybody else. Their health and well-being, their access to education, particularly compromised during COVID and the switch to remote learning, their experiences of racism and discrimination are all contributors to further exclusion and damage. The Government has to implement its own strategies, and there is an opportunity for real momentum behind the National Traveller and Roma Inclusion Strategy. But evidence of that will be seeing the education strategy. Evidence of that will be seeing the full implementation of the Independent Expert Group on Traveller Accommodation. Because if government cannot deliver the implementation of those different strategies by its agencies and departments, then we will have to look at alternative models for delivery. Last week I was in my constituency and I saw a young traveller boy with his father in a small altercation of words with a man at his home. And I don't pretend to know what the dispute was between the two gentlemen or what had gone before. It actually doesn't matter too much. I wasn't minded to that because I was actually just watching the boy. Whatever had happened before, what this boy saw was one man openly disrespecting his father. And I was watching the boy, watching this, and I was thinking and I was wondering how many times it may have happened before and how that had been absorbed or not by that boy. And of course I thought of my own boy, slightly younger, and how he had literally never seen that, how he'd never seen his father disrespected in front of him. And I thought of the two boys and the different challenges that they had, including at their core confidence, and the impact that that moment of conflict had on that young boy's psychosocial development. We talk about inclusion and stamping out racism because we know it has been a persistent feature of Irish life for many, many years, and because conflict between communities, of course, never helps anybody. And so then I look to my own area, my own council area, and look at traveller accommodation there. And despite the challenges of the past, I want to really acknowledge the dedicated work done by Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown County Council in recent years. Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown County Council is, of course, the only Greater Dublin Area Council to have drawn down more than its allocation over the past 4 years and on a cumulative basis over the past 10 years. I spoke with Geraldine Dunn of Southside Travellers Action Group on the status of traveller accommodation in my own area, in her view, and which she has given me permission to attribute to her today on these statements. Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown County Council has made extremely good progress due to what she says is a great team in that section, a team that she describes as dedicated and respectful. She said that these dedicated and respectful staff have made a simply huge difference. I told her that I would report whatever she said faithfully on how she thinks things are going, and it was genuinely heartening to hear that about really good local authority staff and the difference that they have made, and I want to thank them and the Chief Executive for the emphasis that they have placed on this. However, there's still more to do, and there's still a shortage of traveller units, though Geraldine does observe that if the pace of redevelopment of sites and refurbishments continues, she would expect a really positive outcome for travellers in our area within 5 to 10 years. It's still quite a long time. On the other hand, we're not really sure that we have enough units in train for the younger generation, and we estimate there are another 40 to 50 young families coming in the next TAP programme, families that were not accounted for in the last TAP programme, but of course I'm aware that the Council wanted to get the immediate and very serious issues sorted out. But dedicated, respectful staff, it makes a huge difference. Staff actively putting in applications for funding, actively engaging in development and redevelopment, and also they have held themselves to dedicated targets and timelines, putting a timeline on their refurbishment programme and sticking to it, though I do acknowledge, of course, that COVID has created difficulties, as it has in everything else. But redevelopment has been good and a move forward. And I look forward to visiting all of these developments in my area with Geraldine as soon as it's appropriate from a COVID perspective. I thank her for her continued work, and Ronnie Fay and Martin Collins in particular for Pavey Point for their ongoing work and engagement with me. Thank you, Minister.